So here we go. Welcome everyone to the show. This is Kenny. This is going to be one of the first episodes, if not the first episode, of People I Like podcast. And really, that's really all it is a show talking about people that I like. It's going to range. I already have a couple of interviews lined up as it is, ranging from family, hence this episode, which we'll get into in a second, but also actors, musicians. I'm not really a big sports guy, so that's probably not going to be part of it. But it's going to be just a full range of people. And I am recording this isn't my normal recording rig, aka I'm using my phone instead of my studio equipment, because I am over in Columbia, South Carolina. And I lived over in the South for the majority of my life. We're about to cross that threshold here soon of not living in the South here soon. But I'm over here, and I wish it was under better circumstances. I was over here for the viewing of of one of the most amazing women that I have had the pleasure of knowing, my grandmother, Rose Morgan. And today is my last day in South Carolina, and I will be flying back to Oregon. But before I left, I wanted to take a moment, or longer than just a moment, to speak with the living legacy of Rose Morgan. 2 out of the 3, and hopefully the third will be joining us soon. I don't know if she can hear me, but my aunties, Andrea and Sandra, and hopefully we'll be joined by Cynthia later. If not, that's totally fine. But hello. So, really, I know a fair amount of the family history. Mm-hmm. And, I figured it'd be a great way to, kind of just start with going back to where it all began, and I mean, you guys were born in New York.
New York.
And was it Queens?
Yes,
Brooklyn.
Yes.
All right, right on. Mm-hmm. Okay, so back then, of course, I was always taught you never ask a lady her age. But it was, back when it was a different time.
Different time. Totally different time. It's a totally different time.
But so Sandra, you're the oldest.
I am.
Of the 3, and then Andrew, you're the youngest.
Yes.
And okay, so just tell me a little bit about childhood with granddad and grandma.
It was amazing. It was totally amazing.
It was interesting and fun.
It was.
Very helpful for our life now.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a start, I think, with them and what I can remember as a child. And this is Andrea. I was born in Brooklyn. We were born in Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
I was the last of 3 girls, but I didn't live in Brooklyn too long.
Right.
Up until age 3.
Oh, okay.
At that point, but in Brooklyn, I do remember certain things about it, but it's vague,
Mm-hmm.
because I remember, being able to, go out in the middle of Brooklyn at night when my father worked.
Yeah, you could sit on the steps. You be playing at night with our cousin and stuff like that. It was fun.
And granddad was in the military.
He was in Air Force,
Air Force.
For a while, but he wasn't when Mom married. They married. He was out by that time.
Oh, okay.
But
so that's something that I didn't know.
They worked at the same company.
Oh, okay.
American Express company.
That's how they met.
They worked at Amex?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That's how they met.
Yeah, and so basically that's where she would tell the story. She said, well, she came up from Columbia, South Carolina, because that's where she's from. Mm-hmm. Went to New York, stayed for a while, and that's was with our brother, and didn't like it too much, so she came back to Columbia for 2 or 3 years, went back up, met our father again, and worked at the same company. Mm-hmm. So basically, she was working at American Express, came back home to Columbia, went back up to New York after 2 years maybe, and met him again at the same company.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. So that's the story she tells of, that's meant to be, because, he's still there. It's like, and so the story goes, to make a long story short, that's where it all began.
I think after 6 months, I think it was. They say that.
They got married after 6 months?
Yeah,
right on.
That's funny.
After 6 months, yeah.
Don't do it, but but that's the story she tells, and as you can see, it was meant to be. But she always says, they had a life that they built,
mm-hmm.
and they wanted to, show that, look, this is a team effort, and that's how we were taught, you know, that them together through ups and downs. It was a team effort. And as we came along, you know, Sandra came first, you know, I mean, as a girl, the young lady, mom had a brother.
Yeah, and, you know, Dad was,
of all of us.
He was there before.
He was there before. Our brother was there.
I came 11 years later.
And then Cynthia, who came on, you know, the same birthday, you know, 2 years later after Sandra, and then 9. You know,
2 years after Cynthia.
So we're all 2 years apart, except for the brother and, you know, our brother.
You know, that's good spacing.
It's good spacing. Yeah. Our mother was a homemaker, which she decided to do. Like, you know, my father said, nope, he will do the work. That was a traditional mindset of how to build a family at the time. Was like, father would work and the mother would be home with the children.
Right.
And so that was a thing that my mom was really, really dedicated to. Mm-hmm. She said once she had her children, she was going to be dedicated to her children and teaching us and, you know, equipping us with the right tools for adulthood as we went along, you know. And so go forth, growing up in Queens, you know, we have to segue because that's, you know, I'm 3 years old and we're going to Queens, and, you know, that's a whole new life. It's a whole, you know, house and everything, you know. Right. And, you know, just, it was pretty much normal for us, you know, and we didn't know anything other than our parents and us, and, you know, they were happy this and that. Yeah, and enjoying each other, each other's teammates. Yeah. My father was always so keen on taking us out to see things, and just see the, you know, world as we, you know, just gradually. And so we were never just like, oh, you know, to the point we wouldn't know what was going out there. You know, my father said he'd come home from work, we'd hop in the car.
I remember seeing, like, I've been spending time, you know, with us going over memories and stuff. You know, I've been spending time digitizing video. Yeah. I'm probably going to, when I get this up, I'll probably intersplice some of the video that I've digitized over the YouTube video that will accompany the audio. Yeah. But I remember just looking at some of the video of when you guys were kids, and I mean, they would dress you guys in the same outfits. Yes. And mine would be a little bit different. She's like, I got to stand out as the oldest. There you go. I'm exactly. There you go. But I mean, taking you guys to the zoo and walking through the parks, and you know, it was like not only did you guys have school education, but they were educating you guys on just, you know, they were introducing you to the world. Exactly. You know, letting you see the world. Yeah. And you know, and it looks. You know, again, and the video is cute because it's the old-timey video, so it's kind of slightly sped up a little bit. They haven't quite calibrated. So, you know, it's, you know, silent films on these ones, but, you know, you guys, it's not that old, Kenny. But you know, and looking at pictures of them, you know, I mean, we have some pictures right here in front of us right now. I'm looking at these pictures of them, and he was a cool cat. He was a cool cat. I always, you know, when I think about his voice, I think of the actor Dennis Haysbert from the, you know, he's been in a lot of movies. But he was also recently in like the Allstate commercials where he's like, "Are you in good hands?" Yeah. His voice reminds me, like my memory of it. That was his voice. That's it. And you know, in his younger years, looked a bit like Nat King Cole. So it's like Nat King Cole with Dennis Haysbert's voice is like ladies like, "Ooh, Lord." But you know, and then also looking at pictures of Grandma, you know, and I'm looking, you know, the one picture that we had blown up, which is of her and, you know, pretty much all of her sisters and sister-in-laws, and that, you know, they look like a 1950s super group. You know, I mean, then these ladies had class. Yeah, exactly. You know, so
the hats, the gloves,
and she was the youngest of 10, right?
Yes, she was the youngest.
And she was the last of the 10. Last 10 to go. So that is definitely the bookend of that generation. Yes, it is. You know, and now the, you know, our generation is, you know, going forward. Yeah, you know. So tell me a little bit about growing up with Grandma.
Oh, she was very caring. Mm-hmm. But when she mentioned what you do something, just go ahead and do it. Mm-hmm. But it was she was very caring. She was very cautious about keeping us away from, you know,
like bad stuff.
Yes. She was very protective. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she was very loving. And she would do anything, make sure that we had what we needed. And she just the most caring, the most loving. I can't say it enough.
And I know we just, you know, she just passed away, so you know, you guys might end up hearing a few tears, but one thing that I always remembered of her was one of the biggest things that always, stood out to me was she was always a performer. At least from, and, again, going through some of the old videos, like we just saw the Christmas from 1988, she literally led a house full of about 18 to 20 people, family members, in Christmas carols. Some of them were like, oh my Lord, why are we having to sing? But by the end, they're all, they're doing the 12 Days of Christmas, Hark the Herald Angels Sing. And then she's like, this was the Columbia County Choir, the community choir.
All right. Until next time, this is the South Carolina Community Choir signing off. Station ROS.
So, you have a story?
We have a story.
Okay, go ahead.
You know how your grandma liked to play piano, right? And she tried to get us to sing. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
That very piano right there that you sing. She would have us stand, we would be standing on the side of the piano. All they was try to have us harmonize.
Oh, boy.
Can I interject one thing? It was after we played from outside. We were outside playing, we would get called in.
Yes.
Children.
Yes.
To practice and sing.
Oh, God.
Around the piano.
And not to mention the fact, I don't have that ear for music to understand.
Well, I remember the video that we were just watching from 1988.
So therefore, here we go. We be standing around the piano. So they ever get their parts. I, on the other hand, not so much.
Just singing in the key of Z. That's the true story. She would, Mom would
get so mad at me.
Let me just get a little of the anecdote. She would sit there and Mom would just, we're singing our parts and we'd rehearse each one of us.
I will take until we had to get together.
Since, I was the eager one, the young one. She's like, look at your part. And, and I didn't know whether soprano or alto or whatever that was. But whatever note I was, she asked us to hold, I'd hold it. And Cynthia as well. So she would get to Sandra. And it was horrible.
I would try my best.
We were dying to go back outside. And so, Mom says, okay, Sandra, let's get this now. She's like, hold it. And they'll be like, Sandra would go left,
Totally left. All the way left.
All the way to the left. So far to the left, you went around to the right.
Right. And back again.
Get this note so we can finish this song off and get back outside and make some mud pies. It was just hilarious.
True story.
It was a true story. It's happened often.
Well, even in that video, that was 1988, so you were in probably, what, your 20s?
Yeah.
20s? Yeah. Okay, so your part during the 12 Days of Christmas was 9 ladies dancing.
I tried to say
9 ladies dancing.
I tried to say you did. It was like
I tried to exactly.
She would point at you, you're like, 9 ladies dancing.
Exactly. I'm not going to try to sing this. No, I'm not.
You're like, I only have a few more times to do this and I'm done. No, and I remember, she would always, in all the videos that we have from family gatherings and Christmases when she was playing, or she would have music going, she would wrangle everyone in to sing with her, and that was her piece. That was her joy.
Oh, she loved it. She actually loved it.
Dad actually bought her that first piano when he was in Queens.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah. That's it right there.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And she came home one day, and it was in Queens, and the house, and she surprised her with it because she knew she loved music, and she'd been playing forever. And she even tried to get our brother to play, but that didn't work out so well. But she was like, that was her joy, to sit down and play. And you would hear her from outside the house playing. But when he bought it, she was like, wow, that's something he really honed into.
Nice.
And it was something very special, because that's where she would practice for different little things that, for church and whatever. And, that gave her joy. We would hear her
favorite things to do.
When we would come home from school, we could hear it playing outside when we walk in, there's mom playing the piano. That was what we remember.
That never changed.
No,
again, I'm going to reference these videos a lot because it was a bit of an education for me as well, seeing some videos that I've never seen before. One thing that I absolutely love is that she recorded so much, and she said to you, she was like, you guys are going to appreciate these when I'm gone. And absolutely. So we're sitting there watching it last night, and she had Cynthia recording her just playing, and occasionally she'd look over and she's like, turn it off. But then like you could see like 6 minutes later she's back and she's playing again because she was like, right, turn it back on. Let's play again. And she would go. And there was even one time, like you said, you were coming home from work, and Peppy, the dog back then, was like sitting there waiting, and she didn't stop to get up and open the door. She was just like she was in the zone, and she was just playing, and that is memories that's pivotal. It is. I mean that was
invaluable, very invaluable.
Absolutely. So you guys, I remember. Going to the apartment that you guys lived at in Queens. That's some of my earlier memories. The one I would say probably my earliest memory of her. Well, actually, no. I'll digress. I'll talk about Granddad. My earliest memory of Granddad is we would come over, and actually to the house. Right. We come over. I think it was the house. He would come home from work, looking exhausted. Just tired. And he would, take off. He would take off his overshirt, and he had a tank top under it. And he's like, hey guys, how you doing? Right. That deep voice, and he's like, how you doing? And he was like, I'm gonna go ahead and go rest for a little bit. And we're like, all right, everyone's like, it's good seeing you. And we're sitting there, we're probably listening to a story that Grandma's telling. And then I was probably 3 years old, and still my memories would be I would get up and either he would call me or I would go run back there. And you guys had a nice big CRT.
You say I want to go back with Granddaddy.
Yeah. And the TV was one that had the back off of it. Right. I did some repairing on it because he was an engineer, right?
Yes, he was. He was an engineer.
And he would be laying down, and I would get on the bed with him. And I would just sit there and watch TV with him. And
you only went out back there with you.
Right.
Only one.
And he worked the third shift.
Oh.
He was a supervisor.
Okay.
And he worked for the government. So it was actually a government courthouse building in Manhattan. So that's why he would come home. We would come, y'all were there. He was like, come in the morning. And he'd be ready to go to sleep because he had to sleep before he went back to work. And, for third shift or whatever, second or third shift. But that was very pivotal because he was like, he knew, look, this is the time to rest, but this is, this is also family time.
Special.
Yeah. No, it wasn't. And that was special to him.
But very much so.
To make those connections,
That was a big connection for me, That was one memory that I tell, my kids often, and I remember seeing a picture. I don't know where it is, but I remember seeing a picture of him laying on the bed, half asleep, but just relaxing, and that's one of the memories that I have.
He was very laid back.
Very laid back. But also, I heard that he had.
Cool, as you would say.
Some of these pictures, which again I'm going to be intersplicing over are old school cool. Right. He just had that. He was slick.
What?
Now, one of my earlier memories of Grandma. Was when it was Christmas before we moved to Florida. We lived in Brooklyn, and then it was Christmas before we moved to Florida. Right. I tell this story all the time. Yeah. We were talking about it earlier this week, where he or they were handing out gifts or whatever, and it was the last gift, and Grandma always theatrical. She's like, okay, now we have the big gift that we're going to give out. This is the big gift for the children. And and we're like, ooh, here we go. And I'm like 5 years old now.
Yeah.
And she hands each one of us a box.
Yep.
And the box is probably a good 5 inches by 3 inches wide. And she's like, all right, on the count of 3, I want you to open them. And so she's like, 1, 2, 3. So me and my brother and sister, we open up the box, and we each have this die-cast metal car. Mine was yellow. My brother's was red. My sister's was red, and I think my brother's was black.
Okay.
And I don't remember their reactions because I'm 5 years old, and I'm like, I have a brand new car. I'm excited. But while we're fixated on this, she had you guys wheeling out brand new bicycles.
Yeah, and before that, just to make a second, we took pictures of each of the faces.
I got to find those pictures.
We have them.
We have it.
And I want to let
you know. I didn't know that.
Oh, we have it.
And the expression on everybody's face is funny. Is laughable.
Very laughable.
Because, you were just the most diplomatic child.
Sorry.
You were just the most diplomatic little boy to say appreciative. In the appreciative sense. we took a picture. You're sitting next to Grandma, and you're like, the expression of joy on your face was intense. Because you were like, well, a toy, hello, this is awesome.
Right.
And you know how you felt?
It was, I had a brand new car. This was amazing. And I guess from a 5-year-old standpoint, it's like, she said, this is the big gift. I'm like, well, this is a big deal. I got a car. So I remember, and I do remember, I can close my eyes and I can see, I saw something out of the corner of my eye. I look over, and you guys are wheeling the bikes out, and I was like, it was essentially like when you see the women on Oprah where she's like, look under your chair, and you got a brand new bicycle, and it's like, you get a bike, and you get a bike, and I was just like, and I remember that bicycle. It was a black and silver bike. Mine was little because I was a tiny little thing, my little training wheels on it, and it had like a little foam thing on the front, on the handlebar, and had nice grips on it. And I lost my ever-loving mind. And I do remember my brother and sister, they lost their minds too, because Kenya's was pink with tassels. Quam's was, I think his was black and silver as well. His was something like that. But we were like, and we're about to go to Florida. This is going to be perfect. So, we're all excited and whatnot. And I just remember seeing, and one of the things that I remember was she like kind of like small, it was like a small little hop up and down in her seat. She's like, she was just so happy because she pulled it off, and then, unfortunately, my next like big memory is being at Granddad's funeral, which was only a few months later, which I think was like in August, right?
Something like that,
And I remember being, again, not trying to bring the room down, but I remember being in the at the funeral, and I remember looking over. I was sitting with you, Andrea, and I remember looking over at Grandma, and she was, I don't remember who was consoling her, but she was, sobbing, and I remember saying, "Why is Grandma sad?" And you look down, and again, I've talked to you about the story probably about 50 times, but you had tears kind of just streaming down. You were trying your best to hold it together, and you just said, "Because Granddad's with the angels," and you kind of fluttered your fingers like there were wings, and I was just like, "Oh," and I kind of just leaned in, but then from then on, I don't really recall seeing her sad. From then on, she always tried to bring joy.
Can I add a little?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, absolutely.
Just during that time, that same day, that same funeral, my mother, she said she remembers sitting there, and of course the grief was just intense. Of course, that's the love of her life. But she always had this caring, nurturing center. This whole being was that. She said all of a sudden she heard this wail, this guttural wail of a cry. She said she stopped crying that minute, looked up, popped up like, who was that? That was our brother.
Oh, really?
Letting out a scream that was so intense. That she said she forgot all about what she was feeling and was like immediately wanted to go and embrace that child. As
I wish we could have a video component to this one, because watching them smack each other on the arm during this is absolutely hilarious.
She loves finishing people's sentences. This is the funniest thing.
The second half.
It's all team effort. Oh my goodness. But that was the person she was. She would forget about herself.
I've never heard that story.
Even in the deepest of sorrow of times, she was ready to go embrace her child. And that was something that I can never forget her telling me. She said that just stopped her in the tracks.
Wow.
She was crying, and she was just, grieving her father, our father, and her love of her life, her husband. And when she heard that wail, this burst out in the middle of silence. And then it was silence at that time. It was just the priests were, because it was a Catholic and they were doing their, whatever they, do, and it was quiet.
Right.
How are we doing a quiet prayer?
Right.
And man, when she heard that, she just went over, and oh my goodness, she just was like, my gosh, my child.
She was a very attentive, very caring person,
very discerning person who knew that she could, she knew how to help because she would look into the heart of a person.
Right.
And that's what she would see, see the soul and look at that's what she would see and know how to attach herself and hone in. And that's how she could help, how another person was feeling, or family, whoever she met.
Right. And that was in 85, right?
85.
Okay. And you guys, now, the next thing that I remember was you guys moving down to South Carolina. But how were those years between 85 and 88?
Wow, wonderful.
With just the four of you, in New York after that tragic loss.
After our father passed, we were going to college at that time. I was straight out of high school. Mom
out of high school.
Yeah. Mom actually decided to go to school with me because that's what something she always wanted to do. Hence her picture and her graduation picture. We were on the same campus. She said that she wanted to do liberal arts because she wanted to write, and that's what honed her skills. And so we it was 3 year session of schooling, and so it was through the snow and the bus taking, and we were living in Queens, so we had to take the bus to school, and so there were so many days we would have school during the same time. It was like, so you go to school with your mom? I said, yeah, that was the best thing ever,
right?
Because I had money on campus. No pun intended. That's what you're thinking as a 18-year-old. And so I would laugh all the time because I would see her. One time, this specific funny, I won't take long with it, but she had gotten up and walked to the bus on Hillside Avenue, Queens, and was taking it out to Bayside, New York, where the school was. And she calls me and says, Andrea, could you look in my bedroom and find me my other shoe? And so I'm like, why? You do not wear shoes. She says, no, but I got 2 different colored shoes on. And what happened was, in her rush to get ready in the morning, she put on 2 different shoes. They were the same shoe, but 2 different colors.
Oh, that's funny.
One was black and one was navy blue, which is a mistake could easily been made. But in the light and the sunlight, you could actually see the difference.
I need both the
shoes.
shoes.
So she calls me, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm getting ready to come out. I'm getting ready to come to my class. It started, blah, blah, blah. So before my class would start, she said, tell me what building you're in and tell me what class you're in. And then she did. She said it was a Spanish class, and, the building was an administration building or whatever. And I go meet her, I go, and I'm like, how I'm going to do this, how I'm going to, get her a shoe. And I go there, and I know the room because I had the same teacher, at another time. And I knock on the door, and she peeks out the window. I'm like, and so I got your shoe, so she comes out, excuses herself from the class, and I'm like, here, so she immediately takes over and pulls it off and, and gets the shoe right on and goes back in the class. And I'm out there bawling laughing because it was the most hilarious class. I'm not going to let you live from that.
Right.
That's just an anecdote of who she was. She was like, well, I did it. And she enjoyed it, and actually, I hate to admit it, but she got a better GPA than I did. But, she was like, she would like to put that up there. She did better. But I did good too. But, it was just an awesome thing to have her there and for her to fulfill her dream of doing that. She was able to do it. So that included the years during that time during that time. There's other stories that Sandra will possibly provide you with.
Thank you.
85 and 88.
But like I said, like we were saying, it was very smooth years. It was like it was just a smooth transition. We like we said, went to school. I mean,
nothing to worry about.
Normal teenage stuff, with shopping, like normal teenage girls like to do.
It's funny that we didn't have to, which is something we don't like to admit, but we didn't. It was just it was smooth stuff because she provided that for us. She said, look, I know we're here together, we're in New York, and we were safe and sound, and we never had, we didn't have a care in the world because she protected us from that because she knew it was out there, and that's what a mother does,
right?
And so she was being the mother that she knew she had to be because that you sacrificed,
right?
And she did that for us.
In other words, it was like like she said, you have to do this, you have to do this. She'll give us she'll tell us the situation. So you have a choice.
She kind of give you an outline and say, all right,
you do this, this is going to happen. You do this is going to happen. You make the choice, and be prepared to take the consequences for it. That's right. That was the whole thing.
That's a really good. That's
the whole thing right there.
It is.
Yeah. And it was up to us to make the choices. And if we made the wrong choice, that was on us.
So
accountability.
So when did you guys make the decision to venture back down to South Carolina?
She said. My father passed. She said she wanted to move back.
No, she always wanted to move back.
She always wanted to move back, but her life was up there in New York.
She loved it there.
Because our dad was there, we were there. But since she wanted to move back, we said, "Now y'all don't have to go with them. Go with me if you don't want to. Y'all can stay here if you want to." We said, "No, we're going with you."
Not that we couldn't survive. She said you can survive up there, but she said to think of just just getting out the hustle and bustle and all the things like that. She said you could survive up there, but it was more our choice because we were a team, and to break up the team would have been not conducive to
not to mention the fact that we were used to a quiet lifestyle. Yeah, we're not used to we lived on the outskirts. We didn't live in the city.
I call it the country part of New York.
Right, exactly. It's quite something. It was like this.
At the time,
it was like this. I guess, it's quite like this. And that's what we were used to. So it's like, okay, if that's going to be it, sure.
Smooth transition. Really. The only thing when we got here, it was just a little different. Culture shock because of the amount of space between people was immense. We were. I remember once we got settled in the house and property family that we were on, and we were always looking for because we live you got buses to go places, and you can go to the next corner with a bus and be right there. Right. You can walk to the corner store and shop around the corner, just do whatever you needed to do within the area that you had to. But when we got here, it was like trees.
No buses.
Right.
No buses.
There's deer, and there's it was a lot of, that kind of thing. And every time we would go outside on the porch, and we would always say, okay, maybe, there's a car coming or something. We would look for a car. Like, when the car comes, like, there's a car, It's just that way because it was so much, it was different, quiet, culturally different, but it was fun.
Well, the old house, I think, the first time I remember coming down, or actually back then I was going up to the old house. I think the first time that I really remember was probably right around like 90, 91, something like that. I know we probably went up earlier, but I remember around 1990, 91, and the street that we lived on, it was very similar. It was, it was in the suburbs. We had we were the only house on the block for a very long time, and then we had I think it was after 8 years we had one other house, and then it started getting built up later down the line. So I remember going up, and we came from an apartment in Brooklyn, so I remember going up to the old house, and it was almost more sparse, but you guys lived on the frontage of a busier road. Yeah, the barbershop right, next, and there was a Coley down a little bit further down.
And walking distance.
So, but I remember it being, you guys had nice large yard.
Oh yeah.
You had Regal the dog.
Yep.
Same with my mom.
Say that there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yes. I remember, some of the memories I have is being very hot. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, that's when, we started having a lot of family reunions in this area as well. Yes. Where, you get the classic, you go there and then they're like, oh, I remember you when you were this. And it's like, I have no idea who you are, but you're squeezing my cheeks really hard.
I'm the first cousin. Okay.
Mom would organize. I think that's the thing too. This is a little backstory. Is she would organize family reunions from up in New York at a time, and then as when we moved down here, finally we moved closer in. So that would be closer in to organizing. She she enjoyed seeing how the family get together, get to know each other. After how many years, I don't know how often that they took place, but they did. And betwixt there will be W.A. Whaley Foundation. It was the scholarship from in honor of her brother,
right,
who was an educator. And so she would do all those things and try to get the family together, try to get to know who they are, and that would be something she enjoyed. The family is a big part of her.
So did she start that foundation?
No, she didn't. Her sister-in-law worked with her to start it.
Okay,
but she was she created it, the co-organizer, co-creator of it.
Well, I mean, I remember I was a recipient of, I benefited from that foundation when I went to Italy.
Yes.
And when I was 13, and that was one of the videos that I digitized.
Yes.
And I also, and I do recall, and I don't know if it was just the 13-year-old in me, but I recall leading up to my portion of the presentation, and then afterwards saying, "This is taking forever. This is so long."
Yeah.
And
program now.
and then back then, it was stuff that I didn't understand.
Right.
And unfortunately, at that age, I didn't even really care to understand. I was just like, all I saw was there's a lot of people in suits and ties, and they're just talking on and on and on, and I have to sit here quietly, or else I'm going to get in trouble. So I'm just going to. And back then, there was no iPads, there was no cell phones to bury yourself into. You just had to sit and look, and you better not fall asleep, because you got to pay attention, because this is important.
You're up next.
Right, yeah, you're up next.
Exactly.
But, there's a lot of things that I remember her being involved in.
Citizen Center.
I remember going to funerals with her where she was asked to sing.
Yes.
And again, ever the performer. But she also went to cosmetology school,
she
right?
She did. That was part of her, going to New York and getting married and all that.
So she did that earlier.
She got a cosmetology degree there. And she would tell some stories about, when they would go into school and class. I'll leave that out for now. But it's just because of what they had to practice on. So scared her to death. But anyway, she was more like, wanted to do something for herself. So that was something she didn't, I wouldn't say use that as but because she had 3 girls, it was purposeful.
It came
as a cosmetologist, it came very much in handy.
Absolutely.
So she was
girls' hair, okay?
That's here did.
3 of them.
Yeah, but those are things that she enjoyed. Just saying that she wanted to hone her craft. She also sewed. So she was an upholstery sewer, and then sew little girls. This is obvious.
Those outfits you saw, she made those.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there was a video of her trying on different clothes. There was.
She made those.
And then I also saw some pictures, which again I'm going to be including, of she did some African style dresses. I'm looking at a picture of one right now, and I'm looking classy as ever.
She made that.
But then there's that one of her singing, and that one dress that she made that looks.
And that one in there on that picture, she made that one.
She made that one too.
Yeah, she made that.
Oh wow! It's something that you don't really hear too much about anymore. People saying, I'm just going to go make my own clothes.
She had to look a certain way.
Right.
She didn't want to look like...
She couldn't find it in the store.
Right.
She made it herself.
She customized it to what she wanted it to be. And then
I remember us, and this is a little separate, we were Easter. She would sew our dresses, beautiful little puffy little girl dresses and things. And we had to stand still.
Big puffy shoulders.
This the thing, but just the styles back there were capes and just the style of the dresses and things.
She would have it when she would travel do. She would.
We would have to stand still, each of us at a time, and it was my time to come down. It would be my time to come down and stand, and I know each of us, had our time. We were just anticipating having to stand still and be very still because she had to hem them, and put the pins in and measure, and that took a little bit. So I was just fidgety, she's like, "Don't move," we're like, and you would get stuck. And not purposely, because you were moving, and she wanted to be precise,
right?
Because this is something she wanted to look good in. So she
went to that,
and she would do that, and those are memories we had for school and Christmases and whatever outfit she made for us. We would all call down one by one.
Let me tell you what she have us do though. She would have us pick out the pattern what you want.
Oh, that's cool.
She would take her shopping and say, okay, what do you want? She would show us the pattern and say, we want that one. And she said, okay. And we each picked out what we want to wear.
Right.
And said, that way,
I thought, basically we all had the same dress but different colors.
They agree on it though.
We would pick out the pattern. She wouldn't do the different patterns. It was more like you get this pattern, you can get your own material.
Right.
Nice.
You know, but me and Cynthia were always, the middle sister and me, the youngest, will always have the same color. And she would be the one that identified as the oldest daughter. So
had to be different,
she had the opportunity to pick a different color. Right. And that's what made it easy for her. You know, she enjoyed that.
So Sandra, essentially, in your eyes, you were the lieutenant and they were the cadets.
Not so much. I tried and it worked too well.
She wanted her to identify as the older sister.
Right.
And she said, you know, she wanted to have her identity
a little bit
and give her a little more, you know, a little more room to be that.
Well, see, growing up, I always viewed all three of you in a different light. You know, I mean, I remember going every apartment, every house. I always recall you having your own room, Sandra, and then you and Cynthia sharing a room.
That's it.
And then I also remember, you know, that you guys would set out pilots for us to sleep on when we come over. But you know, I recall you, Sandra, as like grandma's like right hand. You know, you were the one that, you know,
I would go everywhere she went.
Everywhere she went.
Everywhere she went.
And if there was any type of instruction that needed to be brought forth, if grandma wasn't there, Sandra was able to parlay, say, you know, this is what you would want to do. And even if there was a little bit of pushback from Cynthia or Sandra or from Andrea, she's like, no, this is what mom wants us to do.
That's right. Chores and all that.
Exactly. So I remember you being very authoritative. And then I recall growing up, Cynthia being very quiet.
Yes.
Quiet. Fire.
Yes, quiet. You know, quiet, but also very could be very stern if need be.
Yes.
And I also do recall that any type of music that you guys, you know, she would be the one that would talk to us about music first, and then you guys would be like, oh yeah, and you need to play this cut too.
Yeah,
I remember
she was Lowe into music. All the way. She had the first radio she got.
Oh wow!
Christmas. And mind you, this is in the 80s, you know, so you're talking about the little boombox that she wanted, you know, a little small square little thing, but that was, I mean, her heart. Cindy would like play the music, we were all, you know, listening to this whatever was in that time, around that time was you know, her thing. But Cynthia was, you know, trying to do the same thing. Mom would tape, and she would tape songs from the radio, because it was a cassette player tape radio, and you could tape songs off the radio at the time. So anything that come on, or Jackson, whatever, it was like, we'd get a tape of it. We have our little tape to play back. Yeah, and she was that one, you know.
And I remember.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Well, actually, what we'll probably end up doing is we're going to take a quick break. We'll go ahead and pause this. We'll come back to finish up the interview. We'll go to the second half, you know, going from the 90s to now. And we'll see you in a few moments. Okay, so we're back. All right, so something that, you know, again, talking about old memories, because I always looked at you as the one that would kind of get saddled with the duty of babysitting and joking around with me and my brother and sister.
I love children.
Yeah, and we would like. I remember I would call you Anda, and you know, and for some reason we never really refer to you guys as Auntie Andrea.
So close in age.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, between my niece and me, we're 6 years apart. And so that wasn't conducive for the little 6-year-old called Auntie.
Auntie, right?
You know, so I think that followed through. It was not a disrespectful thing.
Right,
It was more like, you're close in age, but you know who, you know. And it was just, was that, though, you know.
There was a hierarchy, but it was like a loose hierarchy.
It was loose, it was the unspoken thing. Like, you didn't want to be called Auntie at 6-year-old.
Right.
7, you know, no. So even as we got older, we're still close in age, so it didn't change.
No, and I remember, you know, something that, you know, there's certain little things that as a child I remember distinctly with all three of you. And I'm sorry, Sandra, but for you, it was ironing all the time. For Cynthia, it was using aluminum foil for everything. Like even with like the doll houses, and you guys would make like little like aluminum wine bottles.
That's me.
That's you. Yeah.
I love dolls, and that's what you were saying. If you came over and we played that. That's what I was into.
Yeah,
dolls and how all that stuff. So you knew
you would make like play.
Yes,
play.
She has some of those.
Really?
Clay. Yeah,
she does.
Clay food.
Oh, hi, Timmy. Okay, hold on. We'll pause that. We'll come right back. Timmy the dog ain't happy with me right now. Hold on. Okay, so we had a brief interlude from that was Timmy. He just came downstairs and he was like, "Hey, how are you guys recording without letting me know?" But it was something that was said while we were stowing him back in the room. I already spoke about Sandra, remembering her for ironing. I mean, even back when at the old house, I remember spending summers at the house. You would be at work, I would be in your room watching Addams Family, and the ironing board would be set up right next to the bed.
Well,
but you said something that I need to dissect for a second, is that even as a child, you had a toy ironing board.
I did.
I mean, it's like now. Do you just love ironing? Or
I do.
It's like Zen, like Zen.
I'll iron everything. I don't like wrinkles. I'm
too wrinkled out.
Exactly.
That's funny.
Yeah, I did.
I don't know if I did anything that I would.
I had a video of it. We had the toy. Yeah. I'm just ironing.
That's funny. Wow.
Yeah,
Kid you not.
Yeah. you would see the differences in when we were growing up and what we liked.
Right.
What we actually grew into. Like, I mean, I was like dolls. I love baby dolls, and I like, I love children. I don't have any children, but I love children. And to me, it was always set my little dolls up in a classroom and, having school and all the above.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, and dollhouses, of course, you know all about that.
I was telling the story, but I'm not going to do that.
How are you going to do that? How are you going to say, I got a story, but I'm not going to tell it?
Mystery.
But, I do remember, like, even with my daughter, that's how you got the nickname Darla. Because you would always say, "Hey, darling," like that. And so she tried to emulate you. So she's like, "Hi, Darla." And from then on, you were Darla. I'm like, to this day, we still say, "Hey." I just got off the phone with Darla. Like, I call you Darla.
Darla.
But, anytime we would come for Christmas or birthdays, it was like, you would do a lot of the organizing, especially if it involved the kids.
Yeah.
It was like, all right, we got to get the cake, we got to get the cookies, we got to get the decorations, balloons.
Yes. And I'm agreeing with you.
The thing about it, when you would call and Mom would get the call, she says, "Oh, the babies are coming." I'm like, so that was awesome,
right?
And I loved it, so that was that right down there. And I'm loving to decorate. I decorate for parties all the time, depending on what they're. But it was about the balloons, I would be out of breath blowing up both the balloons, whatever. Because I was doing the old-fashioned way. It was like pump. No, I would just go get the balloons. This is like in the 2000s. I knew that there was those pumps existed. Right. I knew the pumps existed, but I didn't even care. I was like, no, I'm just. I thought the doing of it, the blowing of the balloons was something special. It was like, you do this for the babies,
right?
And so I enjoyed that immensely. So when you knew that the babies would come, like, okay, I gotta get a bunch of balloons this time,
right?
Or just for parties or whatever. It was just me. But I love prepping for children.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I remember, once you guys moved, we spent a couple of summers.
Yes.
I remember, reverting back to talking about grandma. I remember one summer coming up. It was summer '91, I think it was. I stayed here for the summer. I remember getting picked up from the bus station. I took a Greyhound up here.
Yes.
She took me over for pistachio and peanut butter, or pistachio with peanut ice cream. And then I remember waking up the next morning. I had taken my shirt off, and I was sleeping on the couch because I was really, really tired from the trip. Woke up and there were because I had spilled some on my shirt. There were ants all over my shirt. I have anyone that's listening to any of my other podcasts, you guys know that I have a phobia of ants. So I instantly was like, but she handled it. She took the shirt, took care of it.
Yeah.
But I remember that summer was the summer that Super Mario Brothers 3 came out for the Nintendo, and you worked at Richland Mall.
That's right.
Richland Mall, and at the time, showing you how far back this was.
Yes.
There was a store, Babbage's, and all I could talk about, and I know why my kids. I understand when kids, talk incessantly about like Minecraft now, because back then I talked grandma's ear off about Super Mario 3, and she's just like, I understand some of these words because I'm talking about video games and all this stuff, and it's funny how later on in life she became a gamer.
Yeah, she did.
But back then she was just like, I don't know what you're talking about, but you know what, you're so excited, so I'm going to listen. That's and right. She would humor me and listen to me talk about it. And there's a power up where it gives him a raccoon tail and ears and he can fly and all this stuff. And so one day she's going to go pick you up from work, and she's like, we're driving over there, and she's like, Kenny, what's this? She was like, where can you get this this game you're talking about? And I was like, any electronics store, you can get it. And she's like, well, I think there's one in the mall. And we're walking through. She's like, can you show it? I want to see what this looks like. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. So I'm excited. And I showed it to her. They had it displayed right in the window of Babbage's. And we walked in, and she was like, how much is it? And I was like, and the guy was like $69.95, and she's like, her eyes kind of got wide, like, for this box? It's $70 for this box, and this is 91 money, so that's a bit more than that. Yeah. And she's like, go ahead and bag it up, and I was like, what? I lost my mind, and the thing is. And she just had the biggest smile on her face. Yes, and the thing is, I couldn't play it for another 2 months because the game system was back in Florida. So I'm sitting, I tear the box up or the wrapper off of it. We're in the car. We picked you up. You guys are in the front seat talking back and forth. I don't hear a thing because I am pouring through the instruction manual. I'm looking at the cartridge, going back to the manual.
That's what she was about, though.
Yeah, and she just wanted that happiness.
She's all about love and her family.
Yeah.
And if it helped you out, or made you happy, it gave you joy,
she's
all about it.
There's so many different things like that.
That embodied her right there. Love and her family. She had just love.
Yeah.
So many different things in that realm that just made that just brings a smile on my face, and earlier this week, and even up at the viewing, there were several times where I broke down just remembering those great times,
So many of them.
Yeah.
Her heart was the big,
right.
And she always said, she was a short woman, not very tall, 4'11", and she was, her father was about 5'10", 5. Do you remember? I said she was pretty much a little difference in height, but she said, from her feet to the top of her head, she was that much, that tall. But from up there to there, she said that's how big her heart was from
right
up. And so that's how she would describe herself. She said, "My heart, my love, the love I have for people, and the compassion is what she wanted to impart." Amongst the people that she met, especially her family, but people that she met as well along the way.
Well, you have a newspaper clipping that's where she was credited for positive images and community role model.
Yes.
And it mentioned where she went to school and the W.A. Whaley Scholarship Fund. And they're talking about how they talk about they honored her for her community work, her volunteer work. She was working with the drug. This is something I didn't even know that she was working with at the methadone clinic
in New York.
Something says she encouraged young people. And she worked at the Senior Citizen Center. And then she also she did fit. It said at the time. The chorus from the Senior Citizens Center gave up to 15 concerts.
Yeah.
Fashion shows.
They ended the article with her motto is "Love your neighbor as yourself."
Wow, that's her favorite Bible verse.
Yeah,
that's right. The greatest commandment.
So I remember. I remember when we first heard that you guys were leaving the old house and you had bought a new one. Now this is after after I was in the Army, so that was that was after 97. You guys moved here, what, 98? Or so
99?
99.
Yeah, 99. Right. That was on the video. It was 99.
Yeah, July 99.
So right after, I remember coming up to the new digs, and it was just like, this was a massive upgrade from the old house,
We
and
were on family land before.
Yeah.
Upgrade.
and this is, this is the house that from my adult years on, I remember.
Yes,
There are so many memories
Yes.
in this house of
Grandma.
Christmases,
What?
birthday parties, Thanksgiving,
Yes,
where she would come in and
her birthday.
mom's birthdays, she, just going out and barbecuing out in the backyard.
Fireworks on her birthday.
There was one 4th of July where me and my dad got into we decided, you know what? Let's have a Roman candle fight.
Oh.
So we were dueling, and the shirt, I don't have the shirt anymore, but he got me because there's a burn hole in my shirt from him tagging me. Kids, don't have Roman candle fights. It's burned. But
It hurts.
there's so many times where we would have long conversations in that
Yeah.
living room.
Yes.
And one of her favorite things to say, am I talking too long? I mean, it doesn't matter because I got some stuff I need to say,
Good
but
stuff.
it's good stuff.
That's what she used to say. She said all the time, I might talk a lot. I have the gift of gab,
Mhm.
as she called it. She said, but I hope my words, stick and mean that encourage you or make you smile.
Right.
Because that's what she was about. And she embodied that. I said, and that's what, she wanted to pass on
Right.
to her grandson, her son, and us, her daughters and anybody that she came in contact with. She always said, look, if I can help somebody while I'm here, that would be, that's more valuable than anything materialistic,
Absolutely.
And so just to say, look, this woman, she gave us what we needed the tools we needed to grow and live in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And, we thank her for that. The time she spent in the sacrifice. She said, as a mother, you have to sacrifice the time, the time you spend with your children. You are making an impact.
Right.
You are making citizens, who,
Mhm.
I know Kenny knows because he has 4 wonderful children,
Yep.
who are compassionate. And that to me is a legacy of grandma.
That's
They are carrying that fire, that heart, that light that she is about. And I think people get it wrong when they think, oh, it's just about, how many children you have and all that. It's not.
Right.
For her, it was love. And
Yeah.
if you could pass that on, that lives past all that.
Mm-hmm.
It surpasses that. And then when she passed, it's like she could pass it on to the next generation and say, hey, you're still carrying it on. That's a reflection of what I taught you, but what God was in part, giving her, because she was a Christian woman, but a one that was not the typical,
Right.
Dynamic, but she was more like love. If you can have that and you can show that encompasses a lot. That helps a lot.
One thing that she always told me was, it's not about the building that you're in. But, it's about what you do while you're here.
Right.
And what she did, the way I look at it, and I just came up with this just now, but the way I look at it is, with her being the last of the 10, the last of that generation of this family,
Right.
she closed the book, and I look at us as the sequel novels.
That's it.
So the thing is, we have to continue with that theme, and we have to continue spreading that. And if we don't, then it's almost like it's being written by a different author.
Yeah.
We have to keep that vibe.
Right.
It's such a sad. She was writing a book, and that's one thing she wanted to finish. During her time, she finished it. But I think she wanted to get it published, and just it's a encouragement story of her life. In a
Novel.
Novel fictional way, and it's definitely an autobiography. Yet it's more
based on the event.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
And it is for encouragement of others,
Mm-hmm.
and saying that you can make it.
Right.
No matter what you go through, what your start is, it's how you finish.
Right.
The race.
It's the quality of your life. She says.
Yes, quality,
Not quantity. Quality of it. What you do what you do with this journey.
Yeah.
If you help one person on this earth, you have done your job.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's
and that's her legacy. Love.
Absolutely. I'm looking at this picture here of all 4 of you, you, Andrea, Cynthia, and my dad. And, you guys are just, it's just the look of contentment on her face.
Yeah.
Because she's like, this is what I'm, this is, these are my babies. This is what this is what I've done. And, this is like that smile on her face is the epitome of her.
Yeah.
That is, she's just like, she has her hands, kind of just together, like, this is what this is my life's work.
She was the embodiment of love, and you can see it in her eyes.
Yeah.
If she looked at you, you would just like melt because you're like, wow, she really, really cares. It came through so strong
in all her pictures.
It's the light of love, and her faith in God and her teachings of what she followed was what you wanted to say. How are you like that? And she would tell you. And it's not about this other stuff and superficiality and negativity. You got to tune those things out,
right? And
hone into the heart, and that's where we're at.
It's not about. It's always says it's not about religion. It's not religion,
right?
It's about following teachings of Christ. You want to be a Christian,
right?
You got to follow teachings of Christ. You can't say you're a Christian and not go to your own understanding. And she always said, don't add to it, don't take away from it.
Right.
It's straightforward. And it's so simple.
Yeah.
So simple.
She never in the judgment of that is that she doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about what religion or that or what you are. If you claim to be, whatever.
Right.
It wasn't that. And putting titles and things is not what she was about.
Never.
And
we talked about that often.
You all have free will. And she's like, for her faith, it worked for her. And she said she wanted to impart whoever wanted to know. But she also said, don't box people in to where they have to follow me or you or her. It was more like follow what you know to be true, but also number one, follow the heart. If it's done with love, if it's done with the understanding that you have to be compassionate for people, have compassion, and also, look, the children in the future, that's what she was about. She was about labeling.
No.
Because that to me, she said that puts you in a position where now, you're having to, just kind of stay within this little guideline of book that really is like the best thing you can do to make it easy. Said people want to make it so hard, but love is where it's at.
Right.
So she never condemned anybody for being others. So if you're not a Christian, that's fine. If you are, fine too. But with most counting, you can say anything. Labels just sound, so, finite. But what she went, love is infinite.
One way that, that I remember, one of the things that I remember the most about her is, we're coming to the tail end of the show.
Yes.
At one point when we lived in Daytona for a while, my wife and I, and we had 2 kids. We only had 2 of the 4 at the time. And we decided to leave Daytona. We were like, let's move to South Carolina. We're going to move up here. And I moved up here and got a sales job.
Yes, I remember.
Now, let me make a little note here. I'm not a salesman. So why I took a sales job is beyond me. But we kind of made it work. I think at the time we were in our 20s. And I kind of made it work for a good 6 to 8 months. But at the time, it was one of those moments where it probably wasn't the best decision, and we ended up losing everything. I wouldn't say everything. We were able to fit our stuff that we didn't sell off into a small, I think it was like a 6x8 storage unit, just like one of the smallest ones that we could afford. Put all the stuff in there, and I sent my wife and kids up to Canada, and she actually said, look, you don't have any, right now I know it's a hard time, but why don't you come stay with us until you can get back on your feet?
Yeah.
And thinking, for me, some people will be like, oh, I don't want to talk about that. That's not something that, but this for me was a very big learning moment, and we would have conversations nightly where, she would give encouragement and say, I would,
exactly.
I mean, this is one of those things where, I'm a technical person by nature, but to get myself back on my feet, I ended up working at the gas station right around the corner. And I would come home from a shift, and I would come, you know, sit. You guys had a computer right here in the dining room, and I would sit down and I would message back and forth. This is back before video chatting was a thing, so I would message back and forth with Tosh. But when I was done, she would come out of the family room, and you know, she was wearing, again, we said this several times, she would be wearing her slippers and kind of shuffling her feet a little bit, and she's like, and she would say, were you just talking with Tosh? And I'm like, yeah. She goes, now, and then she would sit down right where you're sitting, Sandra, and I would be sitting right there, and she would say, you know, I just want to talk to you for a minute. And it was like nightly talks where she would, you know, she would just say, you know, what you're going through right now, you know, it's a stumbling block, but you know, you're doing your best to get your family, you know, get your family back down here so you can be stable and you can get back on your feet. But it wasn't like it was here, let me rescue you. She was like, I'm going to give you direction. And I remember you guys driving over and picking me up from that apartment that we literally got evicted out of. And I remember you guys were with me as I was finishing up getting all the stuff out of there. And I remember Tosh driving off with the kids in the van, and I broke down because I didn't know when I was going to see them again because we were broke. Right. And she put her hand on my shoulder, and she was like, you'll get through this. You'll get the money. You'll get the money to bring them back home, and it's gonna be fine. Yeah. It's gonna be fine. You'll talk to them daily. You know, she's like, your wife believes in you. This is a difficult time, but you know, let's just go ahead and get home. We'll get some eat. You know, something to eat, and you know, everything good. Yeah, and, you know, and so she would, and she, you know, we sat here, and then it took I think 3 months of me working and saving, and I remember I had got enough to rent a car and drove down to Florida and dropped it off, and then we started the next chapter. And I remember when I went, I was like, all right, so I was like, so I think we're good. I lined up a place to stay down there, and I was like, Grandma, I think I'm good. We'll go ahead and get started. And she was like, I knew you could do it. That's it. And she was like, you know, she goes, you just gotta have faith. But she goes, but, and I remember her saying this. She goes, but faith without works is dead. So and she goes, and you put the work in. So she's like, go down there, get them home, because I didn't, you know, it was 3 months for me to get back to Florida, and then it was probably another 2 months before I had enough working at the new job down there for them to finally come back down, and then we were able to start that next chapter. And you know, we would check in with her, you know, pretty much weekly. Yes. Now over time, you know, I this is my first time back here in 6 years. And it's and the last time I saw her was we were having a kind of like a joint party for virtually all the kids, and then, you know, for birthdays we were like not sure if we'll get to have another birthday party, so, and then one for her as well, and it was like, you know, we're just having a nice big celebration. We did. And I remember the last time I saw her, and we did like 1 or 2 video chats, or no, more than a few. Yeah, you did. I remember one person. But the last actual physical time I saw her was right at the door, and she gave me just this big tight hug, and she gave the best hugs. And she said, she had just said to me, like real quiet, she said, we will be together again. Now here's the thing, we didn't get to have that face-to-face conversation again, but I will say that, and you know, I'm trying my best not to get all teary and whatnot, but I will say that this past week, I have been back with her. Oh yeah, totally. Being surrounded by you guys and us telling stories and looking at old videos. Feel her. Exactly. And you know, I mean, I've seen her in each one of you guys. Exactly. I've seen her in myself. Yes, she's proud of you very much, though. Thank you for that. But you know, and just different traits and things that she would do. I've seen all of you do. And then I took up a little bit of the mantle with like the breakfast cooking. I was like, I'll take care of some breakfast for you. I remember coming in, she's like, and then she would say, She was like, she would call you Andrea. Andrea, breakfast. Come on now, get some food. It's ready now before it gets cold.
That's right.
Yeah.
She enjoyed that.
She did.
She did.
Spent some time with you out in the gazebo.
Yeah.
You know, like just talking.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, it's been a refill. You know, and a nice recharge.
All of them.
And you know, I think that, you know, I'm going to do my best to make sure that, you know, we continue this legacy and continue continue spreading who she was.
That's
you know,
what it's all about.
That's exactly what it's about.
So, you know, again, you know, we were all off last week and off of portions of this week, but I just wanted to again thank you guys for for everything this past week, and for taking the time to go over some old memories.
Yeah,
you know,
very enjoyable.
Really, truly, yeah.
You know, and hearing about the last 6 years on some things that I missed out on, but you know, I was always here.
You'll
always.
So you know, thank you guys so much for
being welcome.
And, you know, everyone, thank you so much for taking the time to go over some family history with us. You know, this is, you know, the pedigree of where I come from, you know, and I wanted you guys to, you know, I wanted the audience to be able to hear a little bit. I mean, this will give you a little bit of insight into how I continuing with these interviews. One last thing I want to add, something that we watched the other night, is she, in a way, kind of predicted that I was going to be a podcaster.
Yeah.
And that I would be here here doing this. We were looking at this video from 1988.
Oh my God.
And the one I mentioned earlier was at Christmas time, and we're panning around. And on the wall, we're like, oh, whoop, whoop. Let's back up for a second. And we pause it. And it's this picture that rush of memories came back. It was a picture that she had on the wall where it was all of, you know, different pictures of you guys in different eras. And and then right in the middle is a picture of me wearing a onesie. For some reason, I decided I was gangsta, and I had like the front of the onesie open so you can see my diaper. But I'm wearing headphones and I'm holding a microphone.
Who knew?
So she was like, that boy's gonna be a podcaster.
And he was in the center.
Yeah, in the center of it. So, you know, I just want to say thank you, Grandma, for everything. And again, thank you guys. Cynthia didn't make it down, so I'll give her a hard time later.
She's dealing with Timmy.
She's dealing with Timmy. But you know, this has been a nice way to kind of button up the visit.
Yes.
About to go get on a plane here, probably in about an hour. But again, thank you guys so much for listening to the People I Like podcast. We will continue with new episodes here coming up. I believe probably the next one I'll be doing will be with actress Kristin Booth, who's known from Signed, Sealed, Delivered on Hallmark Channel. She was just in, at the time of this recording, she was just in a Lifetime movie based on the Nexium scandal that's going on with that whole cult that involves Allison Mack and whatnot. And she's been on Orphan Black and a couple of other shows. So she's going to be, we've interviewed her before on our other podcast, DLO, after the show, but this one is going to be a little bit more of a dive into other projects and, you know, just kind of catching up and seeing where she's been. And I know there's a new Signed, Sealed, Delivered coming up soon, so we'll probably get into that a little bit as well. But we have a couple of other guests coming up, like Jesse Sprinkle from Poor Old Lowe. We have, you know, I have a couple of surprises up my sleeve as well, so be on the lookout for that. Please subscribe to the show. I'm going to do my best to make sure that these get on all podcasting platforms, so you'll be able to listen to it on iPhone and Android. Be sure to check out the YouTube channel. If you're not watching this on YouTube, it's youtube.com/Odzuki, ODDZUKI, as well as you can go to odzuki.com. I'm Kenny, your host from People I Like Podcast, and I will talk to you guys on the next episode.
Learn to genuinely care about each other. Is that right? And once you do that, see, if you care about your family, you care about yourself. If you don't care about your family, how can you care about yourself? Don't ever let anybody come between your family. Because in the end, if you stick together, your family is the one that's going to be there when you need